It was the moment we all held our breath for. After years of turmoil, of threats, of tears, and of seemingly insurmountable cultural divides, Sumit's brother Amit sat before Sumit and Jenny and gave them his blessing. We saw the relief wash over Jenny's face. We saw the gratitude in Sumit's eyes. It felt like a breakthrough, a genuine shift in the family dynamic, a glimmer of hope that love could, in fact, conquer all. It was a beautiful, hard-won moment of family acceptance. But what if it wasn't a change of heart? What if it was a business transaction? New evidence, an explosive insider report that has been shared with this channel exclusively, suggests that his blessing wasn't given freely, it was bought and paid for. His support wasn't a gift, it was an invoice. Before we unveil the shocking text messages that blow the lid off this entire family saga, do me a quick favor. If you're tired of the manufactured drama and want the real story, the one that happens when the cameras are off, then hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notification bell. We're just getting started, and you don't want to miss a single piece of the evidence we're about to lay out. This isn't just a recap, it's a reckoning. To understand the weight of this betrayal, we have to rewind. We have to go back through 10 years of pain, 10 years of Jenny fighting for a love that everyone, especially Sumit's family, told her was impossible. This wasn't just a simple case of parents not liking their son's girlfriend. This was a war. We all remember Sahna, Sumit's mother, and her dramatic, heart-wrenching pronouncements. She would rather die than see her son marry an older American woman. She threatened him. She emotionally blackmailed him. She made it clear that choosing Jenny meant losing his entire family, his entire identity. The pressure was immense, a constant grinding force designed to break their spirits. Sumit was torn between the woman he loved and the family he was culturally and emotionally bound to. And Jenny, she gave up everything. She left her home, her children, her grandchildren, and liquidated her life savings to move to India, all for the promise of a life with Sumit. She endured the scorn, the insults, and the endless uncertainty. Through all of this chaos, there was one person who seemed like a potential bridge: Amit, Sumit's brother. On camera, he played the role of the mediator perfectly. He was the calm in the storm, the voice of reason. He would listen to Sumit's side, he would appear to sympathize with Jenny's plight, and he would gently try to reason with his parents. He was the one who accompanied them to the astrologer, who sat in on those tense family meetings. We, the audience, saw him as the last beacon of hope. If anyone could get through to Sahna and Anil, it was Amit. He seemed to understand the modern world while still respecting his traditions. He projected an aura of empathy. He seemed to be the only one who recognized the genuine love between Sumit and Jenny. He wasn't just Sumit's brother, he presented himself as a friend to the couple, a quiet ally working behind the scenes for their happiness. That's the image we were sold. That is the character he played. But behind that calm and reasonable facade, a different plan was allegedly taking shape. A plan born not of empathy, but of opportunism. A plan to monetize his family's misery and his future sister-in-law's desperation. Now, we come to the smoking gun, the piece of evidence that reframes every interaction, every concerned look, every piece of brotherly advice we've ever seen. We have obtained a text message exchange, a digital conversation that was never meant to see the light of day. This exchange is between Amit and Jenny, and it lays the true nature of his support bare for the world to see. The key message, the one that changes everything, reads as follows. Amit writes to Jenny, "If you want me to speak to my parents on your behalf and support you publicly, I will need a loan of $20,000 for my business. This is the only way to make things right for my family." Let's break that down, because every single word is calculated. Every word is a piece of a meticulously crafted shakedown. First, if you want me to speak to my parents on your behalf. This is not an offer of help. This is the establishment of a service. He is positioning himself as a lobbyist, a fixer who can get them the result they want, for a fee. The support is not unconditional. It is conditional upon payment. He's not doing it because it's the right thing to do, or because he loves his brother. He's doing it because Jenny will pay him to. Then he adds, "and support you publicly." This is a crucial distinction. He's not just selling his private influence over his parents. He's selling his public performance. The blessing we saw on television, the smiles, the handshakes, the appearance of family unity, that was part of the package. It was a premium service. For $20,000, Jenny wouldn't just get a mediator, she would get an actor, someone willing to play the part of the supportive brother-in-law for the cameras and for the world. And then the price tag. I will need a loan of $20,000 for my business. The choice of words here is masterful in its cynicism. He doesn't call it a payment, he doesn't call it a bribe, he calls it a loan. A loan implies a temporary transaction, something that will eventually be paid back. It gives him plausible deniability. If he were ever confronted, he could simply claim it was a legitimate business arrangement between family members, completely separate from his decision to support the marriage. But let's be realistic. What are the chances Jenny, an American retiree living on a fixed income in India, would ever see that money again? The word loan is a veil, a thin piece of fabric thrown over a case of pure extortion. And the mention of my business adds another layer of faux legitimacy. It frames his demand as a matter of professional need, not personal greed. It's not that he wants the money for himself, it's that his business needs it. It's a way of distancing himself from the ugliness of what he's actually doing. But the final sentence is the most revealing, the most damning of all. This is the only way to make things right for my family. With this single line, Amit transforms his personal demand into a family matter. He's not just speaking for himself anymore. He's implying that this $20,000 is the price of his family's honor. He is suggesting that the shame and dishonor his parents feel can be soothed, not by love, not by acceptance, but by a wire transfer. He is effectively telling Jenny that the pain she has witnessed, the tears Sahna has shed, the anger from his father, all of it can be erased with cash. The relationship with Sumit isn't something to be accepted, it's a debt to be paid. And he, Amit, is the debt collector. This message completely reframes Amit's entire role in this saga. He wasn't a mediator trying to find common ground. He was an opportunist who saw a golden opportunity. He saw his family's rigid disapproval not as a problem to be solved, but as leverage to be exploited. He understood the power he held. He knew that he was Jenny and Sumit's last hope, their only perceived pathway to family acceptance. And he decided to put a price on that hope. His support wasn't a gesture of goodwill. It was a service he was selling to the highest and most desperate bidder. With this new lens, we must now look back at every scene involving Amit. Every moment takes on a sinister new meaning. Remember those quiet, one-on-one conversations he had with Jenny? When he seemed to be listening so intently to her fears and her frustrations? Was he really offering a sympathetic ear, or was he conducting market research? Was he gauging her level of desperation, trying to figure out exactly how much she'd be willing to pay? Was he assessing her financial situation, trying to land on a number that was high enough to be worth his while, but not so high that she couldn't possibly pay it? Every nod of understanding, every word of encouragement can now be seen as a calculated move in a long-term negotiation. He was grooming her, building her trust, making her believe he was the only one on her side, all to set the stage for his eventual demand. And what about his interactions with Sumit? The brotherly advice, the pats on the back. Was he genuinely supporting his younger brother, or was he playing both sides? He would listen to Sumit's anguish, validating his feelings, telling him he understood how difficult it was. This would ensure Sumit continued to see him as a confidant, as the one family member who got it. This trust was essential. If Sumit ever suspected Amit's true motives, the whole scheme would fall apart. So Amit had to perform for everyone. He had to be the dutiful son to his parents, the empathetic brother to Sumit, and the potential savior to Jenny. It was a masterful, multi-year performance of manipulation. He wasn't trying to solve the family conflict. He was actively perpetuating it. The conflict was his business model. As long as his parents were unhappy, his support had value. If his parents had simply accepted the marriage on their own, his leverage would disappear. So it was in his best interest to keep the drama simmering, to keep Jenny and Sumit in a state of perpetual anxiety, making his eventual intervention all the more valuable. This theory suggests a level of cynicism that is truly breathtaking. It paints a picture of a family unit that sees relationships not in terms of love and connection, but in terms of assets and liabilities. From his parents' perspective, Sumit was a valuable asset. He was supposed to have a traditional Indian marriage, produce grandchildren, and follow the path they had laid out for him. His relationship with Jenny represented a massive depreciation of that asset. In their eyes, he was throwing his life away. Amit, observing this, didn't see a family tragedy. He saw a financial opening. He realized that if Jenny wanted to acquire this damaged asset, she would have to pay to offset the family's perceived losses. The $20,000 wasn't just for his business. It was, in his framing, a settlement, a compensation package for the emotional and social damage the Singh family believed they were incurring. He was essentially brokering the sale of his own brother's freedom. Now, we must consider the reckoning. According to our insider source, Sumit eventually discovered these text messages. We can only imagine the circumstances. Perhaps he was using Jenny's phone to look something up. Perhaps an old message notification popped up on a linked device. But imagine that moment of discovery. The screen lights up, the casual glance that turns into a stare of disbelief. The blood runs cold as he reads the words, his own brother's words, laying out the cold, hard terms of his betrayal. In that single moment, Sumit's entire world would have shattered. The brother he trusted, the one he thought was his only ally within his family, was revealed to be the worst kind of opportunist. The one person he thought he could count on had been using their family's pain, his pain, as a tool for financial extortion. The betrayal is absolute. It's not just about the money. It's about the fundamental corruption of what family is supposed to mean. Sumit spent years fighting his parents, believing their opposition was rooted in tradition, in misguided love, in a genuine concern for his well-being. It was painful, but it was, on some level, understandable. But this is something else entirely. This reveals that, for Amit at least, it was never about tradition or honor. It was about cold, hard cash. It proves that everyone in his family, in their own way, saw his relationship with Jenny as a commodity. For his parents, it was a social commodity they refused to part with. For his brother, it was a financial commodity to be sold. This revelation would force Sumit to confront a horrifying truth, that in the eyes of his family, his happiness had a price tag, and his wife's desperation was just an opportunity for a shakedown. The foundation of trust, already fragile, would be completely obliterated. How could he ever look at his brother the same way again? How could he ever sit at a family gathering knowing that the peace had been purchased? Every smile from Amit, every kind word, would be tainted by the knowledge of the transaction that underpinned it. This wasn't just a betrayal of Sumit, it was a profound betrayal of Jenny as well. She came to this family seeking love and acceptance. She endured humiliation and heartache, always hoping that one day they would see the real her, that they would see the love she had for their son. To discover that her supposed ally, the one person who gave her hope, saw her not as a future family member, but as a mark, a source of cash, would be devastating. It would confirm her worst fears, that she would never be seen as anything more than a wealthy American outsider, a walking ATM to be exploited. She didn't just pay for a blessing, she paid to be humiliated on a level she never could have imagined. She was essentially forced to pay protection money to her own brother-in-law to shield her from the cruelty of her mother-in-law. The entire family structure reveals itself to be a web of manipulation, with each member using emotional leverage for their own gain. Sahna uses threats and emotional blackmail to control Sumit, and Amit, seeing this dynamic, uses his position as a mediator to exploit Jenny. It's a closed system of emotional and financial abuse. This insider report forces us to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. Was this a one-time demand, or is this just the tip of the iceberg? If Amit was willing to sell his support for the marriage, what else has a price tag? Is every major family decision a negotiation? Is making things right for the family a coded phrase for show us the money? It throws the family's entire value system into question. The traditional values they claim to be protecting, the honor they hold so dear, all of it seems to be negotiable. This single text message doesn't just implicate Amit, it casts a dark shadow over the entire Singh family, suggesting a deep-seated culture of transactional relationships disguised as traditional family values. The love and respect that should be the bedrock of a family are replaced by leverage and exploitation. This is a story of profound disillusionment. For Sumit, the realization that the brotherly bond he cherished was just a facade. For Jenny, the knowledge that the acceptance she fought so hard for was just a mirage, a paid performance. And for us, the viewers, it's a chilling reminder that sometimes the most reasonable-seeming person in the room is the one with the most to hide. They are often the most dangerous because you don't see them coming. While Sahna was the loud, obvious antagonist, Amit was the silent predator, waiting for the perfect moment to strike, using the chaos his mother created as cover for his own greedy scheme. The monster you know is one thing, but the one you trust, the one you believe is on your side, that's a betrayal of a different magnitude entirely. The pain of it cuts far deeper. This wasn't just a family dispute. Our source claims it was a meticulously orchestrated conspiracy, with Jenny's life savings as the grand prize. What we saw as a family finally coming to terms with a difficult situation was, in reality, the closing of a dirty deal, a final handshake after a successful shakedown. Let's delve deeper into the anatomy of this alleged transaction, because the implications are staggering, and they ripple outwards, tainting every single memory we have of this couple's journey. Consider Jenny's position at that exact moment in time. She is in a foreign country. She has completely severed her financial and social safety nets back in the United States. She has invested a decade of her life, a decade of emotional energy, and a significant portion of her retirement savings into this one single relationship. She is at the absolute peak of her desperation. She has faced down Sumit's secret first marriage. She has endured the relentless verbal abuse from his mother. She has navigated a complex and unforgiving bureaucracy to stay in the country. She is at the end of her rope. And it is at this precise moment of maximum vulnerability that Amit, the supposed ally, makes his move. This wasn't a random act. It was a predator sensing the perfect moment to strike. He had watched her, he had studied her, he had waited for her to be completely broken down to a point where $20,000 would seem like a reasonable price to pay for peace. He knew she couldn't just walk away. The sunk cost fallacy was in full effect. To walk away then would be to admit that the last 10 years were a waste. It would mean accepting defeat at the hands of Sahna. It would mean returning to America with nothing, having to explain to her children that she had lost everything. The psychological weight of that failure would be unbearable. So what's another $20,000 on top of everything else she had already lost? In the grand scheme of her investment, it was perhaps, in that moment of desperation, a logical next step. It was the final toll payment on the long, brutal road to being with Sumit. Amit wasn't just demanding money, he was leveraging her entire life's investment against her. He knew she had no other choice. It was either pay up or lose everything. The loan wasn't an offer, it was a hostage negotiation, and her future was the hostage. Now, let's pivot to Sumit and the fallout from this alleged discovery. The betrayal from his brother is, of course, the primary wound, but there is a secondary, more insidious consequence. This revelation would inevitably force him to look at Jenny and their entire dynamic in a new light. He would have to grapple with the knowledge that his wife paid for his family's approval. Can a marriage, a partnership built on love, truly withstand the knowledge that it was ultimately greenlit by a financial transaction? It introduces a poisonous element into their relationship. It taints the very memory of that blessing. The moment he thought was a breakthrough of love and acceptance was, in fact, the culmination of a backroom deal he knew nothing about. He was the product being sold, and his wife was the buyer. The shame and humiliation of that realization would be profound. It would also force him to confront his own powerlessness within his family structure. He fought for years. He cried, he begged, he tried to reason with his parents, all to no avail. His emotions, his love, his happiness, none of it was enough to move them. But a wire transfer from his American wife, that apparently was enough to solve the problem in an instant. It sends a clear message. In his family, money is the only language that is truly respected. Love is a weakness, but cash is king. This would be a brutal and definitive end to his innocence. He could no longer cling to the hope that his family's opposition came from a place of misguided love. He would be forced to see it for what it was, a system of control and transaction, and he was just a pawn in their game. This would be a lonely, isolating realization. The family he fought so hard to win over was, in fact, a sham. The brother he trusted was a con artist, and the wife he loved was forced to participate in this sordid affair just to be with him. He is surrounded by the wreckage of his family's deceit, and this forces us to ask another, even darker question. We have seen the text from Amit, but what if this wasn't Amit's solo project? What if he wasn't a lone wolf, but merely the designated bagman for the entire Singh family? Let's re-examine that crucial line. This is the only way to make things right for my family. He doesn't say for me, he says for my family. This could be interpreted as him positioning himself as the family representative. He is the one making the demand, but the money is intended to placate the entire unit. This opens up the terrifying possibility that Sahna and Anil were in on it, that the entire decade-long drama was, at least in part, a coordinated good cop, bad cop routine designed to break Jenny down financially and emotionally. Consider the dynamic. Sahna is the bad cop. She brings the relentless, over-the-top emotional drama, the threats of disownment, the public screaming matches, the dramatic feigning spells. She is the chaotic force that creates the problem, that makes life for Sumit and Jenny a living hell. Her role is to push them to the absolute brink of despair. Then in steps Amit, the good cop. He is calm, reasonable, and empathetic. He listens. He validates their feelings. He positions himself as their only hope, the only one who can possibly reason with the irrational mother. He becomes their savior, but his help isn't free. After years of Sahna's theatrical abuse have worn Jenny down to a nub, Amit presents the invoice. It's a classic psychological manipulation tactic. Create an unbearable problem, and then sell the solution. Sahna's hysterics weren't just the reactions of a traditionalist mother. They were the first stage of a long con. They were the setup, and Amit's text message was the punchline. If this theory holds, it means that every tear Sahna shed, every threat she hurled was part of a calculated performance. The family's honor was not the issue. The age gap was not the issue. The cultural differences were not the issue. Those were all just negotiation tactics, tools used to justify their campaign of harassment. The real issue was money. They saw Jenny not as a person, but as an opportunity, a foreign woman with a retirement fund who was desperate for their son. They likely assumed, as many do, that all Americans are wealthy, and they decided to see how much they could squeeze out of her. The 10 years of pain were not a tragedy, they were an investment. An investment in wearing Jenny down until she was willing to pay any price for peace. And Amit's $20,000 demand wasn't extortion. In their minds, it might have been a perfectly reasonable settlement. It was Jenny's entry fee into the Singh family, a non-refundable deposit. This reframes the entire narrative of the show. We thought we were watching a culture clash, a story about tradition versus modernity. But if this insider report is accurate, we were actually watching a slow-motion robbery. We were witnessing a family of grifters executing a meticulously planned, decade-long scam, all under the guise of protecting their family values. Their values weren't the obstacle. They were the weapon. They wielded the concepts of honor and tradition like a club to beat Jenny into submission. And when she was sufficiently battered and bruised, they sent in their smoothest operator, Amit, to close the deal. Let's look back even further, to the very beginning. Sumit's original catfishing of Jenny. At the time, it was presented as the act of a young, insecure man who was afraid to show his true self. But what if it was more calculated? What if Amit was aware of it from the start? What if the brothers saw Jenny, an older American woman, as a potential mark from day one? This is speculative, of course, but within the framework of this conspiracy, it makes a chilling kind of sense. Perhaps the initial plan was simpler, and it spiraled as Jenny's feelings and her investment grew deeper. They may have underestimated her tenacity, but as she kept coming back, as she kept investing more of her life and money, the potential payout grew larger. The revelation of Sumit's arranged marriage was a major crisis, but it also served their long-term goal. It inflicted massive emotional damage on Jenny, making her even more desperate for a final resolution, and therefore more susceptible to a final shakedown. Every crisis, every setback was just another turn of the screw, tightening the pressure on her, bringing her closer to the breaking point where she would agree to Amit's terms. Think about the sheer audacity of it, to weaponize your own family's drama for profit, to see your brother's anguish not as a source of pain, but as a source of leverage. Amit watched Sumit suffer for years. He saw the torment he was in, caught between his lover and his parents, and instead of helping his brother, he saw a business opportunity. He saw his brother's suffering as a commodity he could sell. The colder and more cruel his parents were, the more valuable Amit's support became. It was in his direct financial interest for his parents to be as horrible as possible to Jenny. It was in his interest for the conflict to drag on for years. The longer the siege, the more the defenders are willing to pay for a rescue. Amit wasn't a peacemaker. He was a war profiteer, and the war was happening inside his own living room. And what about the money itself? $20,000 for Amit's business. What business have we ever seen any evidence of a thriving enterprise that required a sudden, urgent cash injection of this size? Or is the business just another piece of the fiction, a convenient and semi-plausible reason for the demand? It's far more likely that the money was never intended for any legitimate business. It was payment for services rendered. It might have been split amongst the family, a victory dividend from their long campaign, a reward for Sahna's award-winning performance as the hysterical mother, a commission for Amit for closing the deal. This wasn't a loan to help a struggling entrepreneur. It was a ransom paid for Sumit's freedom. The ultimate tragedy is what this does to the concept of family. A family is supposed to be a refuge, a place of unconditional love and support. The Singh family, as painted by this insider report, is the opposite. It's a marketplace. Every relationship is transactional. Love is conditional. Support has a price. and loyalty is sold to the highest bidder. Sumit and Jenny thought they were fighting for a place at the family table, but they were actually just customers in a very crooked shop, and they were being massively overcharged. The peace they have now, if they still have it, is a fragile one. It's not built on a foundation of love and acceptance. It's built on a foundation of lies and a secret payment. It's a peace that was purchased, not earned. And things that are purchased can be sold again. What happens next time the family needs money? Will there be another crisis? Another manufactured drama requiring another loan to solve? Jenny didn't just buy a blessing. She may have signed up for a lifetime subscription to her in-laws' extortion schemes. The betrayal is so complete, so multi-layered, that it's almost operatic. Amit didn't just betray his brother and his sister-in-law. He betrayed his own parents, using their genuine, if misguided, traditionalism as a tool for his own enrichment. He betrayed the trust of the audience, who saw him as the voice of reason. He played everyone. He saw the entire emotional chessboard and figured out the one move that would allow him to walk away with the cash, leaving everyone else emotionally bankrupt. He turned his family's deepest conflict into his personal ATM. His family's love has a price tag, and the discovery of this alleged transaction proves that for the Singh family, nothing is more valuable than money, and no one is more expendable than the people who love them. Is this the most cynical, cold-blooded cash grab in the history of 90 Day Fiancé? Is it proof that the entire decade-long struggle was nothing more than a carefully orchestrated shakedown? The evidence is damning. The implications are horrifying. Let us know what you think of Amit's business deal in the comments below. And make sure you are subscribed, because we have more messages from this shocking exchange, and we're going to be analyzing every single word. You won't want to miss it.